Are we live? We are now live. Welcome to another Wednesday episode of Lifestyle After 5. I'm sitting with Vanna and, of course, MD Red.
What up? What up? What up, people?
It is another Wednesday. We're glad to be here. Today, we are what I didn't realize was such a controversial topic that's got everybody rattled. I was in Texas and I was sitting at a bar, and this guy was just going in on the Gen Zers and talking about how they're lazy, they're not worth anything. And I disagree with that. So just so we get the show started, let's describe what the different generations is. And we can get into why is it that the baby boomers in Generation X is so against this whole generation. As if we didn't, as if we didn't have situations when we were growing up. So just so you know, I'm going to describe what a Gen Zer is. A Gen Zer is anyone born between 1997 and 2012. So if you're between the ages of 12 and 27, you who everybody don't like for some reason and who corporations will say that they're having a problem with.
Right.
Now, right behind them is the millennials. Now, if you're born between 1980 and 1996, 1981, 1986, and you between the ages of 27 and 43, you are a millennial.
Mm.
If you are the fellow Generation X, if you're born between 1965 and 1980, you're currently between 43 to 58, you are Generation X. And last but not least, the baby boomers. If you're born between 1946 and 1964, and you currently between the age of 60 and 70, you are a baby boomer, and you are part of the problem that we're going in. I'm saying. So join us tonight as me, Vanna, MD Red go into this topic in this situation. So to kick things off, let's talk about some of the common misconceptions that we got going in there. And just great. So yeah, some of the common misconceptions about Gen Z is that they lazy, they entitled, they over reliant on technology. But my question is these criticisms accurate? And joining us down there at the bottom is one of my favorite Gen Zers, my one and only son, Jordan Gaston. How you doing, Jordan?
I'm doing good. What about you?
I'm doing great. Great to see you.
You too.
You're Gen Zer, so I don't hear from you often. I get to see you that often, just in type of situations.
What's up, Jordan?
What's up? How you doing?
I'm good, man.
Savannah, what do you think on this? You're also a Gen Zer.
Uh, I think the generalized stereotypes take away a lot of the personalization of issues like this. And it is a deeply personal issue because let me make sure that I'm doing the right things because, like, I keep mixing Gen X and Gen Z because dyslexia. Gen Zers are in a very interesting situation of being given the most of everything that we have ever learned about through human history with not enough limitations upon it. So, upon the like reliance upon technology thing, we were hand given Kindles and laptops and iPads in school. We were phased out of the textbooks. I am myself a person that loves to read. But when I got my phone in the eighth grade, because that's how long my parents waited to give me a phone, and I'm grateful for them, the me now actually wish that they waited longer, but I was a whiny teenager. We
So,
were raised with so much technology and it was just hand given to us to optimize and to use, and then we were punished for not knowing what to do without it. So yeah, there are things that are a lot more difficult to do without technology. Like, I
man,
volunteer at the food pantry every
so I'm
Wednesday,
gonna
and a
give Jordan
constant
time.
issue I have
Before we
is
go to the next
counting
segment,
numbers.
let's take some more comments on that deal. Because we got 10 minutes a segment. Jordan, what are your thoughts on it? What we just stated.
um, I would say that like I kind of agree with her, just in more of the sense of we are kind of like just me personally being like Gen Z, but even more so like right in the middle of Gen Z, where it's like not really close to millennials, but also not really close to this new generation, Gen Alpha. I feel as if like we came in as like a transitional period, just in the sense of I feel like there are some generations that are hard set inside one generation and one era, like baby boomers and millennials, you know, Gen Alpha just being one of the first generations to be fully engulfed in like technology. It's different when you're in that transitional period because you're hearing all this new technology and all these things like she was saying about like, oh, this makes life so much easier, or oh, this is what we're using, or this is what's going to be the future, while also trying to conform to the past and like everything that we learned. So I think that that's like mainly like the part that I kind of get like teeter tottering on, because I do see how like it's important to learn some things like how to count change or how to tell like an analog clock or just like some of those things, read a textbook. But at the same time, I don't think it's fair to like necessarily say, oh, well, just because they learned with MacBooks or computers or iPads, you know, that the learning experience was any different than the people before us.
Great. So now, a lot of people got this myth that y'all are lazy. And that's one of the biggest myths that I hear that you guys, especially since COVID, that you don't want to work and that you are lazy. But I don't think that is true. I think it is a talent problem and a because the same people that are saying this are the same people that had to have a law passed to make them treat everyone equally and to protect us all against discrimination. These are the same people.
Mm.
So I don't think that that is a generational thing. MD Red, what are you seeing?
Now, I mean, personally, I get to work with Gen Zers. I control a crew of actually 4 or 5 Gen Zers. They just, I think they approach work different. They're more like a work smarter, not harder type of people. You know what I'm saying? They're actually the definition of it. But they can be a little lazy. I think they just need more direction. I don't call it laziness. They just need more structure.
Well, this is interesting. This is what Dave Ramsey had to say. I'm going to play a clip from Dave Ramsey.
What to think about this article, but you and I will go through this together. WTOP.com reporting frustrated by Gen Z office workers, companies are turning to etiquette training. Nearly half of companies are now using office etiquette training and an additional 18% plan to by the end of next year. That'd be 68%, according to a recent survey of HR managers. While most doing so are offering the training to all employees, the need has been brought to the front burner by managers' frustration with Gen Z employees and college graduates entering the professional workforce. Managers have called those youngest of workers the most difficult to work with because of poor communication skills and lack of much, if any, prior exposure to the workplace environment and what is and isn't acceptable. It also has a hedge against the talent shortage that companies in most industries are still facing. Companies have had to come to terms that they can't keep firing Gen Zers for not behaving in an office. To counteract that, they're having to teach them how to behave. We've got a building full of Gen Z and millennials, and we actually love them. We think they're the two greatest generations to come along in forever. But what we have laughingly said, and it is actually very true, is there's only two types, excellent and sucks. What we find is that we get, by a stringent hiring process and vetting process, we call out the ones that don't have the social skills to exist in an office building with 1,000 people. I think if you're at the point in your company that you have to have a class on manners and etiquette and how to dress in the workplace, you have a hiring problem. That's what I think.
That was
I
very
agree with that.
interesting. I
Yeah.
agree with what he says about there are two types. There are the excellents and then there are those who suck. Because there are Gen Zers that are entitled, that are lazy, that are completely inept without their cell phone. But there is that in every single generation.
Exactly.
Just because it's more on TikTok and publicized doesn't mean you can say this generation is so much worse. It's like when all the like the police racism videos came out. That didn't just suddenly start happening more and more. It was just being filmed and recognized more and more. And that's one thing that goes into Gen Z is that so much has been learned from the previous generations about mental health, about how to work with others, about working with others, about receiving respect in the workplace. Because that's one thing about Gen Zers is that they're not taking the manager's shit of you have to do everything that I tell you because it's in your contract and I can basically threaten you because I own your life. That mentality was the major push for myself to make my own company because I knew I was never going to be happy working for someone else when my livelihood was in the hand of someone who on a bad day could throw it out
But
the window.
so I want to ask, and I start off with Jordan on this. Is Gen Z entitled? Now I know I have a Gen Zer daughter that's very entitled. What do you think about that?
I kind of like agree with her, just like trying to piggyback off of that is that I think it's a combination of one, just now that we have like the technology to display a lot of these things, kind of like what she was saying, I just feel as if like it's so much easier to say, well, this is happening now or this is happening now, even though it's always been happening. It's just now it's actually being filmed. And with that, I think a lot of companies like feel a little scared of Gen Z just because of it's not as simple. You can't just say and call anyone anything that you want and it's going to come with no repercussions anymore, you know? And so I think that it comes with a little bit of that, but I also feel like it's more so when you make a, I guess, a system in which everyone has to go to college, everyone has to learn higher education, and even if you didn't do all those things, it's never been more noticeable to just be like knowledgeable. You can look on the internet and find literally anything that you need to know, and I just feel as if with that you come and you go into these places, and I think maybe the companies are expecting like a higher level of, I guess, knowledge because they think, oh, well, if these people are more educated than the people in the past, then we won't have to teach them as much. They can just immediately go into it.
Now, MD
I
Red, what's your opinion on this?
I I agree with Anna to a point. You know, it's definitely getting more publicized. You see things more, but on the as far as like on her comment about job, I mean, you hired to do a job and you agree to do that job. So if you're going to be lazy and not do that job, then yeah, it's well deserved. Like I deal with this on a daily basis of people not wanting to perform or do what they're supposed to do. And if that's the
And
case, then you should go somewhere else because at the end of the day, it's a business, and the company does not care about your livelihood or anything else. All they care about is their bottom line.
no,
Mhm.
I agree, but there's a fine line between sucking it up and doing the job and just being blatantly disrespected
Oh no,
or
don't disrespect.
like
Like no one
abused.
should take disrespect from anyone.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that
That goes to the point, and I see the comments. I see a comment, hold on, Gen Z is not entitled. We are empowered to stand up. That is true. And I appreciate you, Gen Z. And I've openly gave Gen Z's credit because, I don't think we would have Juneteenth as a holiday, although there's more to come. But Gen Z brought that on. That was Gen Z's work. So that
Mm.
goes
I agree with
with
that.
them being lazy. 60% in the studies, when you go in there and you look, though, of Gen Zers have entrepreneur mindset. They either have started their own businesses
Hmm.
or they have aspirations to start their own businesses.
And that goes
So
back to the laziness. It's like you have to be like in an environment that caters to that. Like if it wasn't for my mother being an unwavering support, I would not have gotten to the place where I'm comfortable enough to write this story and make my business. And just people are not encouraged in that way. Or and if they are encouraged, they get trapped in the imposter syndrome and anxiety of, okay, this is the level that I want to get to, but how do I get there? And they're like, that's what this generation is so amazing by is like we just see that. And some of us, yeah, we get paralyzed in fear, and others just like, oh, there's an obstacle here? No, it's not. And we find a way to make it through.
And
And
I
that is due to seeing every generation before us face challenges that seemed impossible and overcome it.
And along with that, I also feel like we Gen Z has seen like all these other generations like try and like just like she kind of said, just struggle in the workforce or in this and that. We don't want to have that necessary life. We just kind of want it our best way, which I think a lot reason why a lot of like entrepreneurship and just things like that are starting to come more popular in our generation, just because I think that it is like what you say is that I think that we don't take disrespect and we'll just go somewhere else or start our own thing, before we will allow the system, to just let us do whatever they want us to do.
It's funny. No, Danielle, you have not been replaced. Danielle,
I
aka
miss you, Danielle.
she's
I
out
hope
sick
you feel
today.
better.
And then Nick, I agree. You guys will stand your ground, and that's what we need more of. So that dispels the myth that Gen Z is lazy. Like I said, a lot of people, especially uh, baby boomers, don't realize that there is a gig economy that Gen Z works within, and that's what I had to break it down with the other guy we were talking about. At certain ages, that's why I feel like once you get into your 70s and 80s, you shouldn't be CEO of certain corporations because there's a generation below that's doing things that you have no idea about.
You
You
want to
think
tell that
they're
to our
lazy,
political
like
parties?
yeah, and well, yeah, I didn't want to go there, but hey,
We ain't going there. I'm gonna just
but,
like sprinkle
but
that little factoid in there.
But like I said, they're saying that Gen Z is lazy, but Gen Zs are driving Ubers, they are doing DoorDash, they're on
I've done
YouTube,
DoorDash.
influencers, they're doing a lot of stuff. We had Flexi on here, well, on our radio show a few weeks ago, where they're creating a whole new way, dynamic of the way we work based off an app and getting paid right then and there. So the whole scheme, the whole world has turned over and changed, and I think a lot of people mindsets just haven't shifted and not used to the changes that have came. But
And I think it goes back to a lot of y'all's generation were forced into this cookie cutter box. You weren't allowed to breathe. You weren't allowed to grow. You were like a plant that got root bound. Yeah, you could have the option to go to a different pot, but if you spent so long in that little pot that you got from the Walmart's garden center, you're not gonna be able to thrive without a little work and coaxing. And so, like, one big thing, like, just from a spiritualist standpoint, is like, y'all have to allow yourself to live your lives. And, like, because, like, it doesn't just stop when you leave high school or college. You can have the decision to live your life every single day. We are giving ourselves permissions. It's not you only live once. You live every day. You die once. You have
let's
to give yourself permission every single day to live your life and make it the best that it could be.
I got a clip I got to show real quick and see what they have to say about wrong.
Survey of 1,300 plus managers and business leaders revealed 74% found that those people who are 26 and younger tend to be the most challenging to work with. What are some of the top reasons? A lack of technological skills. That one surprised me. Lack of motivation. They're easily distracted, easily offended, and dishonest.
Okay, but here's the truth of the whole thing. Most of these companies would lay you off in a heartbeat if it affected their bottom line. And Gen Z knows that. They might even be the first generation to enter the workforce knowing that. I'm not telling you to be lazy on someone else's dime, but a lot of these companies don't give a damn about you, and it's perfectly acceptable to not give a damn back.
Technology. Gen Z. Y'all are definitely the first generation to be born with so much technology. Basically every answer at the drop of your hand, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I am very impressed by this. And I was giving a speech on Monday, because one of the biggest comments that I hear about Gen Zers is when you go out to a restaurant and you go to a store, Gen Zers can't count change back. They don't, they got to have a cash register, they got to have a calculator to be able to give you change back. And in my speech, I said, if someone, whoever it is, go in your pocket right now and give me some change. No one had change on them. And I,
I was about to say, no one's gonna have change on me.
no one has changed. And like I told them, Gen Zers don't know how to count change because change, their world is going digital. Change was in my era. There won't be any more change. It's just like a collectible where you got the states or whatever is something from the U.S. Mint, but change is something that's going to fade away and not going to be in Gen Z and Gen Alpha's world.
Hmm.
I really hope not, because like just thinking about like the ideal life that I want to live being like a van lifer, or just like having the ability to just go down the road, and if I want to wake up in the mountains, I can do that. Needing things like quarters for coin laundries and gas pumps, those are an extreme necessity. So that's a part of my brain that is like a little bit of feared of everything going digital. But granted, I am an enigma that wants to live in the woods away from people for the rest of her life. So take with that information what you will.
Nah, it's definitely going digital,
Yeah.
and it's going faster than people think. I mean, money is becoming obsolete.
And I feel like that's kind of like the hard part of it all. It's just like, because like I know, like me personally, like I know how to count change and do all these things, but kind of like what
Of
you
course
said
you
is
do.
that
You
it's
better.
kind I hope so. But kind of like how like y'all are saying, it's just I feel like when you have like that digital world of like that changing technology, it's really hard to like teach people that while also trying to like do it. Just like for example, I've seen a lot of like people who go to jail for like a very long time. Maybe they went to jail in the 90s, 80s, you know, all that just now starting to get out, and then they just have such a hard time adjusting to this new changing world just because they went from having cash register like people at the cash registers to just straight like tap and pay, you know? And that's such a hard thing to try to like teach and learn to people, you know?
No, I
That
agree with
is.
you, man. I agree. It's I don't think it's a learning curve. I think they're just scared of it.
Yeah.
It's hard to adjust to it because it's your brain works. It never stops working. They are afraid to change their ways,
Mm-hmm.
and our generation, the millennials, the ones that are catching on, are the ones that you see entrepreneurs making money, doing their thing. The ones that are not, those are people that you see struggling and sitting at home looking crazy.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the main important part is that you have to be like more tolerant to change. And I think that's where like a lot of Gen Z hate comes from. It's just because a lot of people aren't tolerant to changing, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
most
Tolerance in general is one thing that has to shift. And like that's one thing that I'm so happy about with like the Trevor Project and Black Lives Matters and things like, yeah, it's uncomfortable to talk about, but it doesn't change the fact that these are issues. And like you don't have to be like asexual transgender octopus to understand that a person deserves to be a person. It doesn't matter where they come from geographically, biologically, it doesn't matter. Every person has the right and ability to live their life as long as they don't hurt anyone or themselves. That's my firm and honest belief. If you don't hurt yourself or anyone else, you live your best weird ass life. And that's one thing that, like, going back to what Emerald was saying about how their brains don't change, this generation has an incredible brain with, like, the neurodivergency. And, like, going back, you can find that neurodivergency has been around for generations that has just been unrecognized. And one thing that has come into this generation, one thing that makes people like, so, oh, Gen Zers are so entitled because they have, say, like, oh, well, my sensory stimuli is too much today and I can't function like that. People don't understand, like, biologically, their brains work and process information differently. And too much
That
stimuli,
is actually a
especially if
fact.
they
I
have been
looked it up.
traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
Gen Zers brains are different. That is actually a fact of the matter in the study that I was reading about. which is not a bad thing that you think differently. Of course, you think differently because you have different tools that we didn't have. Now, a lot of people make the argument that technology is dumbing us down. I have the counter. I think that technology has propelled and moved us forward. ChatGPT has not dumbed people down. You know how much stuff I can. It would take me weeks to do that I can do in a matter of minutes now if I know how to use the technology. And that's the thing. I just use my brain in a different way. I don't sit there and use my brain to write out scripts. I have to learn the prompt and how to leverage ChatGPT, and not just ChatGPT, all the different technology. If you go into manufacturing, digital transformation into these companies right now, they're leveraging. They definitely are leveraging the technology, and a lot of people that don't believe in this technology is going to be laid off. All you baby boomers and Generation X people, if you don't adapt to the new world and the technology that's coming, you're going to be replaced. Because right now they keep saying that AI is going to take all the jobs. Well, they're going to take the jobs of everyone that hasn't upgraded and continuously learned and adapted to the new skills. But there will be jobs out there for the Gen Zers. Just
Yeah,
And
it's just gonna be different. But for people that are so trapped in their one mindset of this is what I've done my entire life, this is what my family did, this is what it means to be such and such individual, they're not going to shift and change because their version of reality, their very essence of who they are is instilled in this mindset. And when you take that away, you take away all stability that they have in themselves, and fight or flight kicks in. What do? You run away or you fight back.
And while we're on that, I just want to say I don't care what politician tells you, no matter president, mayor, governor, whatever, manufacturing jobs are never coming back. I don't care who tells you that. They're done. There's not going to be new coal mines. No, you're not bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. Manufacturing is going away, well, at least in the US. In most civilized nations, we're using technology now. And if those manufacturing jobs do come back, you won't be in there doing it. It will be robots. So
And that's just the result of like late stage capitalism, just in more of the sense of like for example, what I learned a lot about like in like my engineering is just trying to find like clean and renewable energy sources. But like the main reason why we don't put more money into them is just simply because of corporations still wanting to be on coal or still wanting to be on like natural gases and just things like that because
No,
it makes them money and that's all they know how to when they
it's
could
delayed.
switch over and make it 10 times easier, 10 times more affordable for everyone around. But I
but
think
that's
we're
not
just
what they
seeing
want because that keeps the
exactly.
money in their pocket.
And so
Like,
with that and like housing and just all of these things that we're starting to see, it's like we're starting to get a sense of hopelessness in the sense of like, oh, well, they clearly just don't care about evolution. They just care about aligning their banks, in their pockets. So I just feel like
why would you
until
keep helping? Why would you keep
exactly.
No,
feeding into a
I think
system that
that's
only
part of
feeds
it,
you?
but a natural human instinct is to fear what you don't know.
That's true.
It is.
So
But
the
why do
new
you not
stuff
know?
scares the shit out of them.
But bring that back. That is a common Gen X thing baby boomer and Gen X thing. I don't know. Why in this world you don't know?
Yeah, you
It's
should. It
because
shouldn't be. It should be the case right now, but
you
You
that's
don't
not.
accept
want
a
to know.
version of
Mhm.
reality. You accept a
Yeah,
version
You
of
don't want to
reality
know.
and you won't accept anything that pushes against it because it
yeah.
makes you feel like you were wrong. And your ego, the part of your soul that you present to the world, most people accept that as all they are. They don't see themselves as anything more than the roles that they play. So when you take away the power from those roles, you take away the power they feel in themselves, and they feel nothing but fear and absence. And
Mm.
that's when you have a caged animal in the corner, ready
Yeah.
to lash out.
I agree with that 100%. I just feel like a lot of people aren't okay with being wrong. And
No, they're
with that
not.
it comes like, oh, just such a resilient on trying to like believe something that you don't even believe in. Case in point, just like more of like, since it's a prevalent topic kind of around now, like just like all the LGBTQA like community is just I feel like a lot of people just don't understand and maybe you can understand and maybe you'll never be able to understand and that's okay but kind of like what she was saying earlier as long as someone's happy and they're doing stuff why does it matter it doesn't affect your life, it's not like it's in front of you every single day like all of those things and I just feel like a lot more people just get so frustrated that they can't understand why someone is doing what they're doing, that they don't even take the time to do what you said. It's just open up and be, I'm wrong, or I want to know more about this community. Please explain it to me, or please explain why you feel the way that you feel, you know?
because that
Yeah.
takes a level of humility and
And
vulnerability that
empathy.
people don't want, and empathy.
Hmm.
The
We're not
sheer
teaching
lack
that.
of empathy. Like, this new generation is fucking awful. Like,
I just want to know why do you even care
Yeah,
what somebody
because
else
we're
does do with
told,
their life.
we have always
exactly.
been told that you need to get approval from other people, and that other people have to like approve of what you're doing, and that's just what we have been told, and it's
Yeah, that's
complete
retarded.
bullshit.
Hmm.
It I don't like that word, but it is.
That's
But
fucking retarded to
I
me.
will give a
I
caveat
don't
with it
care
when we
what
come
no
to
one
and
does with their
when it
life.
comes to. But there is a caveat to that. You do have, and this is where I think a sense of entitlement come into. You are allowed to do whatever you want to do as long as you can fund it. You don't get to
True.
come in someone else's house
Hmm.
or on somebody else's job or
True.
their program and do like you want to do because that's how you feel. And this is one of the biggest disconnects that I do see with the generations. You have to respect, the house. You got to wipe your feet on the rug. You
You're
you have to
correct.
go by the house, the rules of the house, or you have to go build your own house on certain things.
No,
Yeah, and
that's
to piggyback on that, like you said, you're entitled to do whatever you want to do. That
Mm-hmm.
don't mean I have to like it, and I
Yeah,
have to
and I get
respect you.
another
I
thing. I
have to
don't have to
respect you
like it.
not to say anything, but I don't have to agree with everything you do. But I know how to mind my business,
Hmm.
and that's what
And
we
I,
need to develop. People need to know how to mind their business and mind their life. I don't care what the next person does; it doesn't directly affect me.
no,
And
exactly.
that's how I carry myself with anybody. Like if it's not directly affecting me, I don't care what you got
Yeah,
going on.
exactly.
If you are staying up in the middle of the night, rolling over your head, that one dude in Walmart who had fly ass eyeliner, if
Nah.
you're rolling over that in the middle of
mhm.
the night, you need to ask yourself, why are you so obsessed with that? Because you are probably just jealous you want to be like him. And that
Hmm.
goes back to the
That's tough.
allowing yourself to be yourself. When you don't do that, you hold everything that you are inside of you and it just suppresses into rage. And I can speak from the experience of someone who grew up very close to this energy. It is not healthy for you or anyone involved to live off of rage like that because you're not allowing yourself to be yourself. Just be your beautiful, weird fucking self. And if people have a problem with it, there's the door. They
Hmm.
don't have to stay in your
as
life
long
and you don't have to keep them.
exactly now, like I said, as long as you're not depending on those people that you're offending, that is fine.
No,
But I
like,
kind of want to talk about that real quick, just because, like, obviously, I have the unique position of, like, for example, like living with you and like being with things and just having, like, I guess being in a Gen Z, having Gen X parents while being in like a Gen Z household, and I just feel as if, like, sometimes, like, when you come into like the dependable thing, at the end of the day, like I get going into like another company or working with someone or doing all these X, Y's, and Z's, and if you don't like it, up and leave. But at the end of the day, if you don't agree with your parents, you can't. It's not as simple as just up and leaving or just like not doing it. So like I feel like with there has to come a little push and pull because one, as teenagers and just all those things, you're trying to find yourself and you're trying to identify yourself and if that you may be something as a teenager that you don't come up to be as an adult, but regardless, you need to allow your children to have like the space to just like grow and be who they are becoming.
Well, that
We're
just
gonna go
depends
into
on how it's affecting you.
we're gonna go
Now,
into our next segment and we're gonna address this.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Now, you did hit a good topic growing up with parents and especially having a parent like me. I was pretty much a drill sergeant type. I admit
why am I not
I
surprised?
prepared y'all to be soldiers at war. But at the same time, I feel as though I did allow you all your individuality and I did allow y'all to communicate with me. I didn't put you in a corner and say everything I said was the go. If you could prove me wrong, I listened and I entertained it. Although it was hard, but you guys come with me. I mean, sometimes it's almost like a series of Law and Order with us.
Hmm. And I feel like I kind of agree with that. Just like more since I do feel like you always allowed like us to at least like have the conversation with you to like open it up. But I also feel like it's one of those things where like sometimes you would pre-tell us or pre like be like, no, you're not doing this, or no, you're not, you can't do this, you can't say this, you can't do all these things. And like I would grow up and I would wonder why. And now that I've gotten older, I understand why you were doing what you were doing. Don't get me wrong, but like I feel like sometimes it's hard to explain that. And I think that's the biggest thing I've noticed with Gen X is that they do things, but they don't explain why they're doing them, if that makes sense. And I feel like I understand you can't teach a 4 year old that everything that you're explaining or why you shouldn't touch the stove. But if they're 10 years old, teenager, all that stuff, it wouldn't kill for people like Gen Xers to just kind of be more like, oh, don't touch that because it's going to be hot and you're going to hurt yourself.
I
I
agree with
know
that.
this, you know? Yeah.
I agree with that.
Hmm.
We do owe it to you because you are like I was before we got started with the camera. And I was talking to Lord Shu. For the baby boomers, it's time for you to go sit down and relax.
Yeah.
Your world is over. I mean, typically go retire, try to retire or whatever, sell around the world. I am coming up and I'm next up to bat. I only got 10, 15 years in this game. And then I'm handing this over to the millennials. I want to go sell around the world, but I will always be there as a guide. But the world has changed, and as the world changed, it's going to phase me out. My time is going to be up. If I
Hmm.
hadn't done all I want to do by a certain age, it's over.
Yeah.
Certain
Hmm.
things is already over, and it's time for you to come in. And that's one of the things that I always looked at when raising with you all was everything that I knew as an adult and coming up because I didn't have a God or anyone to guide me.
Hmm.
So everything that I was weak in, I wanted to make sure that you all were strong in. That's why I pushed on certain things to make you strong. This is why you're here today. This is why I wanted to study. I had a passion for electronics. I never pushed it on you. You probably never knew it. But now you're studying electronical engineering. Soon to be, hopefully next year. You'll
Yes,
be an
May.
engineer next
Yeah.
year. I plan to be yeah. So this is where a lot of Gen X is where Gen Z got to understand with Gen X. Gen X, we didn't really have a God. A lot of us were told in our household just go to school, get an education, and figure it out.
Hmm.
So we didn't know
Hmm.
how to explain it to you. We were just graduated with some of us high school diplomas, those that were lucky a college degree, and it was go to the corporate world and figure it out. We
Hmm.
didn't have guys, no one to tell us, watch out for this trap or this trap. Maybe a few, but many of us didn't have that.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. And I agree. And I just feel as if that's kind of like what I was trying to say earlier was just more of we see those like struggles that you Gen X had to go through, millennials had to go through. And so by the time you get to Gen Z, all you can think of is how can I make that life not mine, if that makes sense. You know?
Yeah, like
How
Oh
can I
learning
make
yeah.
it
from
better?
We just don't want to see y'all make the same mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that goes back to one thing that I talk about a lot on my channel, which is a generational curse. It's a repetitive cycle of like abuse or alcoholism, poverty that has carried on through, like I said, generations. Like your grandparents were always in really bad neighborhoods. So your parents worked really hard to pull you out of that place. And
Hmm.
then you watched your parents tear themselves apart to make sure you had a better life than they had. And so when it's your turn, and that's one reason why this generation is just like, I'm not having kids. One, health concerns. So many of us women have health concerns like PCOS, where we're just not able to have children, and others it's just like it's too expensive, it's too taxing. I don't need that experience in my life. And so like we've learned from previous generations, but there are some parents that have brought up this generation that haven't learned, that have just given their children everything that they wanted, that didn't
Yeah,
treat their
that is not
children
good.
as individuals, that treated their children as smaller versions of themselves, that
Hmm.
didn't let their child grow up to be anything other than who they said they had to be. And so there is the balance and moderation in all things. That's one thing that I stress to talking about is like balance in all things.
Well, that's
Now,
true. a lot of the X's are trying to be the Gen Z's friend, and I don't believe that parent and children can be friends. I mean, we can hang out or whatever, but I'm not your friend. I'm always going to have a different type. I mean, you're not boys. We're not peers. We can have a good time together here and there, but we won't ever be best buddies where we hanging out.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That I see, I
Yeah.
disagree. Like that's just, and this is just the weird relationship that I have with my mom, but she literally is my best friend. Like we sat down and binged Bridgerton season 3 together when
well,
that
what
came
I'm
out.
saying, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, like I said, but some parents are going out to Gen Xers and they're like at clubs and they're shaking it and they drinking, with their children and they're partying out in clubs and different places with the children.
I
I
mean,
don't.
I'm not gonna yuck anyone's yum. Like it's like I
Yeah,
said,
there
at
has
the
to
end
be
of the
some
day,
type
it
of
doesn't
line.
affect me. Like if you're going out there and my child is involved in that, I'm gonna have some problems, but
Well, this is what I'm talking about between
Mhm.
parent and child dynamic. No, I don't have the different when parent and child are doing it together. When they're out there partying and drinking and stuff
Mhm.
together, is not my cup of tea. But
Yeah.
it's
I can
what
see like both sides of it just because like I'm kind of more on like kind of like what you're saying about like I don't believe that parents and like friends should parents and kids should be friends, but just more so in the sense of like I think after a certain point, like maybe teenager, 18 and older, like then you can start showing your more friendly side. But I think that there does need to be a fine line between like parenting and not, just because like I went to school with people who have like that, and I just always noticed that they were always either getting in trouble or just being more lax or just being like whatever, because at the end of the day, their parents aren't going to want to discipline them. And there's still multiple forms of discipline besides like beating your kid, but still, it just comes with one of those things where you do need to show a level of like, I'm
Respect.
not your friend. Exactly. Respect. That's the perfect
no,
thing, you know?
I would agree with that. Like the relationship that I have with my mom, like I'm 24 now, it
Mhm.
has developed quite a bit since I graduated high school, became an adult, made
Mhm.
many mistakes, and like shared things that because of the level of comfort that I have with her, I would not have been comfortable sharing with my parents
Mhm.
because there's like the level of judgment that comes from a regular parent's relationship. But that's one thing that like I see reflected in you, Ali, that my mom similarly did is that she treated each of us kids, my brothers and I, as individuals. We didn't get the same treatment because we were not the same children. We didn't act the same. We couldn't have like uh an emerald can administer a certain amount of heat and pressure before it cracks. However, a garnet can take the same amount of heat and pressure and be molded into a more refined and beautiful stone. You can't give an umbrella like treatment to a generalized audience because it takes away all the personalization of it, and each person needs to be seen as the beautiful messed up little disaster that they are so that they can say, hey, this
I
is a little
definitely agree with
messed
that.
up, but I
100%.
deserve to be worked on. I deserve to fix myself. I deserve to heal myself.
And my
And
children definitely know I do have favorite a rotating bar of who's my favorite child and the child I don't like of the day. I definitely they knew that growing up, like hey, I don't like you today. You are not my favorite child. Oh, you're my favorite child today, and they know it. It's a sliding bar and a rotating bar. But as we get ready to close, this has been an interesting conversation, and for those that are listening, I hope you are learning that Gen Z does have a lot. Is their world is changing, whether you realize it or not. They are not lazy. They work differently than what we work. It's not backbreaking work anymore. And it was the same thing that I heard as a Gen Xer
Mhm.
when Nintendo first came in. That hey, we're no good. We all we're gonna do is play Nintendo all day and Super Mario Brothers, and we're not gonna be fit for work. And I mean, when I was in basic training, drill sergeant, this kid couldn't figure something out, and drill sergeant, I'm so tired of these new recruits. I bet if it was a damn Nintendo, he could figure it out. So I mean, it's the same thing with every
Yeah.
generation. Gen
Uh-huh.
Z's world is different and it's changing. They're not going to need a lot of the things that we need, and they're not going to have to rely on a lot of the things that we had to rely on, like writing in cursive. That was a big deal. Hell, I just signed a couple of documents this week in Adobe. An Adobe Acrobat, a digital e-sign is what we use. Like I said, we're
Yeah.
going to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. Hell, Gen Z, y'all are so lucky. Y'all got backup cameras. Hell, cars in the next 15 years, y'all not gonna even. Most of y'all don't even have license.
Oh, hold
Y'all
on. I mean,
Hey, there's
not
like
just backup
cars that
cameras.
are
The damn
driving
car
like
parallel park by itself now.
Yeah, the damn car do it
exactly.
for them. They got cars now. The damn Tesla's driving for them now.
When
So
we took our driver test, you had to parallel park to pass that motherfucker.
yes.
I didn't have to do
Or
that.
you wasn't
I
getting
didn't
that
have to
license.
do that.
Uh,
Some states got rid of the damn driving part altogether. They had to bring it back. I think at one point Georgia had removed the
That
driving portion.
explains why my cousin was able to get one.
Yeah, they was giving them damn driver license out of Kmart.
You get a license and you get a license.
That's the way
Next
it
thing
is.
you know, all the wrecks started rising.
Look
Accidents
on
started
our
rising up.
Why you think my insurance just went up more than double? You damn Gen Zers on the damn road.
I
Nah,
will
that's
admit, I
corporate.
feel like a lot of people, just like Gen X and like millennials, give their kids cars at such an early age. And I feel like I remember going
Yes.
to high school and seeing people who had cars 14, 15, 16 for their birthday and would immediately wreck it.
Yep.
But, I have a
One of
car that's passed down, and I feel like I have to
my
take
car
like
is a
more careful.
2010.
Is it mine is too? So,
I
it's
gave
just
my
one of
I
those
gave
things.
my son a car, and he would not drive that shit.
No, one of my favorite videos of an entitled brat was it was her 16th birthday and her parents got her like a high-end model Tesla and she was pissed because it was an electric car she would have to charge. So
Mm,
she's like, "I want a Mazda." And they go back, get her another car and like this is like a cute little sedan. She was
Wouldn't work.
pissed. I'm like,
Wouldn't
That
work.
"I'm
wouldn't work.
sorry. I'm sorry. You
No.
turned down the first car. They are gracious enough to get you another car." And then so like those are the instances of the entitled and the
You bring,
lazy.
well, you bring a point too. A lot of the Gen Zers' parents are a lot richer,
Yeah,
than economically richer
yeah.
than our parents per se, or definitely the baby boomers.
Hell yeah. My mama
that's
didn't
fair.
have shit when I was growing
Yeah,
up.
the one of the main problems is that love has accepted being a transactional meme. I give you this amount of money, you are meant to give me unconditional love and affection. And I'm sorry, when you put it on numbers, numbers never end.
Hmm.
You're going to be forever chasing something down the highway that you're never going to be able to grasp because it will forever be fleeting. You have to find the level of love and acceptance in yourself, but that also means that you have to understand that you're worthy of love and acceptance.
So I'm
And
gonna
that's
ask you.
not something that we've been taught until this recent generation.
So as Gen Zers, I'm gonna ask both of you. I'm gonna get Jordan. I'm gonna give you this chance.
Hmm.
What do you see the future as when, like, as far as your 5 year, 10 year plan as a Gen Zer aspirations?
Well, as far as like aspirations and stuff like that, it's just I do kind of see like what you're talking about, just more in the sense of I feel like I want to go more towards the entrepreneur route and just like kind of making my own business, just because I see these like corporations and I see these businesses and the way they're treating, and even then the job market right now has just been like they say they're hiring, but they're not really hiring. They're just trying to do all.
No.
So I just feel like it's starting to get to the point where I feel like I have to rely on myself, but I also feel like that's where it gets kind of scary. It's just as a Gen Z and as being into late stage capitalism, I'm seeing so many things on how am I going to buy a house? How am I going to start doing these things? And even then I go and ask advice for Gen X, millennials, and they only know what they've known in the past. And so it's really hard to like, or the other people who do know are pretending like there's not a problem and that we're, like you said, entitled and lazy. So I mean, I'm kind of playing it more so like by ear, but I feel like there's been such a level of just trying to like, oh, you have to get out of high school. And as soon as you have to go to high school, you have to go to college, and after that, you have to get into the job. That you have to do an internship, and then just such a structure in it that it's really hard to see if I even have a choice to say like, where am I going to be 5 to 10 years because it's already predetermined and laid out for me. If that makes sense.
Uh, I hear you, but if you remember the wise words of a great father about 5 or 6 years ago, that once whispered into your ear and said, "Son, I know that you're going to school for engineering, but son, learn how to wire a house.
Hmm.
They may not need you as an engineer, but they will always need you to wire a house. Somebody is going to need you, and you will always be able to feed your family.
Hmm.
When if you ever want to tell a job go to hell, you know that you can still go make a living. I'm just saying something
Yeah,
wise
yeah,
man
yeah. And
once
I
spoke.
agree with that. I feel like that's kind of what I've been leaning more towards. It's just I've been trying to go. It's this is the funny point. It's just I've been looking more towards my grandpa, and just seeing. And I just remember I always saw him like reading up on books and watching YouTube
Yeah, you
videos and
do.
just doing all these things, just
Yeah,
learning. And I
he's a
would just
baby
kind of
boomer, and
yeah,
he's
and
one
I
of
would
my
just kind of
mentors.
ignore it,
Right.
because it was just whatever. But now I'm starting to look and I'm starting to see. I'm reading his books. I'm watching videos that he watched and learning the things that he. And I'm like, to be able to be in the position of just constantly being able to learn and grow and just experience and learn how to do things, even if you aren't good at it at first. I feel like that's what has been driving me and gravitating towards. So I've been watching more YouTube videos and things like that just to find out how to wire a house or how to put together a car and take it apart or how,
My advice
because at the
as
end
a
of the day,
Gen
I have
Z,
knowledge, but I don't have application of that knowledge. And I think that's how
listen
a
to
lot of
the
Gen Zers feel
listen
is
to
that
the
they have knowledge but
wise
not application.
Gen Zers. Listen to the wise knowledge and words of your parents. Some of it.
Facts.
Man, what do you see yourself?
Facts.
Very, very similar to Jordan. It's like I'm trying to balance entrepreneurial and business empire growth with learning practical skills. Like, I taught myself how to build my own website and make these bracelets in an effective, repetitive way that are still unique, while also like teaching myself wood burning and carving and things like that. Like, so ideally, in 5 to 10 years, I would have sustainable land somewhere in the mountains that like I have a home base of operations where like I have all of my recording studio, all of my technology and my Wi-Fi is in this one little place. And then when I'm done with work, I can leave it there and go like walk my lawnmowers, which are going to be my goats, and teach my children like yes, we can go and like see the Natural History Museum and go and see NASA, but also like this plant here can help you if you're sick. And like learning from the best of all of the opportunities that we are given here in this generation of all of the technology that we are learning now and the things that have been instilled in this earth for as long as it has been floating through the cosmos. So in 5 to 10 years, I want to be a sage guru that owns a construction and wedding company.
And I think that's like a pretty good point just because I love technology and I'm loving what we were learning and being able to do with that. But there are also some remedies that like have been around for a long time that we are I feel like as a generation, at least like my generation, has been like knocking just in the sense of it's important to learn from your elders, kind of like what you were saying, or from different cultures who have medicines passed down. And like, yes, I know you can go to the store and buy an ibuprofen and it'll cure your headache, but there are natural ways and natural remedies that are doing that they don't teach anymore because it's just been passed down from generation. So I think it's important to, while also accepting new technology, is to learn and remember from like the past as well.
And that's just like one thing that mama told me when I was little, just like no matter what you do, never stop learning. Because the moment you
Hmm.
stop learning, the moment you say you're done growing, that's it. You're just done developing as a person. And like I say this all the time to my collective, you are a never-ending, constantly evolving masterpiece. You are perfect as you are. It does not mean you cannot be more refined. It does not
Hmm.
mean you can't accent what is beautiful and bring shadow to add more depth. But you don't need a miracle pill or a company to fix you as you are. You need to accept that you are the key to your own success and happiness. And that's one thing that is coming up in this generation of it's not woke mentality. It's people realizing the power that we have innately had in us for generations that just in the past few hundred years has not been taught. But fundamentally, vibrationally, this earth is changing and more people are waking up to that. And I am so fucking excited.
I
I
want to thank
agree.
you both
Yeah.
for your comments. This has been an excellent show getting Gen Z spin on everything. Amy Red, you have anything before we go?
Yeah, I mean, as a father of a Gen Zer, man, I can say that I'm very proud of the man he became. You know, we had a plan for his life. He stuck to that plan until it didn't work for him anymore. And once I realized that he has to make his own decisions, then we got on the same page. So, man, shout out to him. Shout out to Kenya. I mean, he's definitely not a lazy person. So
I
that's
love
definitely a
that.
stereotype. So,
100%.
It's a
Definitely.
base assumption.
And
And you know
thank
what
you.
they say about assumptions? It makes an ass of you and me.
Thanks, Joy, for coming on. You are definitely my favorite Gen Zer today.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
It was a pleasure.
Your entitled sister, it was in the comments and said she taught you everything that you know.
wow.
There's
Just
one
a little
sister
bit.
that tried to join in, but
Oh, that was the
she
sister talking?
Yep, unfortunately.
Oh,
yeah.
you be nice to her.
Yeah.
She has to deal with your father.
It's
But
just
no,
happened to be with the
she's
baby.
great as well. She went on as a Gen Zer as well, and she actually got her bachelor's degree in political science, and she went on to get her master's in education. And she's a
Nice.
Nice. You got a
proud mom,
Kamala
a
Harris.
proud son-in-law. Who, what did Nick graduate in?
He graduated the year before, I think 2021, during
Yeah,
COVID.
what did he get his degree in? Uh, so he's a degree. He was actually competed to go to the Olympics a few years back. So
Nice.
was an athlete and doing well. So yeah, and like I said, my oldest, which is
Mhm.
on the cusp between millennial, she's working it out as an inspiring healthcare worker and looking to grow into that field. So yeah, I'm proud.
Yeah, man.
Mhm.
Did a good job, sir.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. One day you will replace me up here doing your thing. For those that are listening, go right now, check us out. Go to the internet, wdjy.com 99.1, and check us out. Shu, who are we interviewing? I'm going to let Shu, the moderator, tell us who we got coming.
Yo, yo, what's happening? I'm live from behind the camera. It's Lord Shu, everybody. So, tonight we are interviewing Zamora, and her company is called Aleph Beth Artistry. So, y'all can check that out on WDJY 99.1 FM. You just go to the website. I'll have it on all of our platforms. So, y'all check it out.
Yeah, I couldn't pronounce that a deaf-based artistry, so I had to call in for some help. Know when to say when. Anyway, this has been a great show. We're signing off air. Y'all take care. We'll see y'all next Wednesday.
Peace.